Hi, my name is Sonali, and today I'm going to talk to you about reflex actions and reflex reactions. So, reflex actions are fast, automatic responses that our body creates to protect us against danger. And these are usually brought about by a dangerous item or a dangerous occurrence in our lives. So something like a flame. If I was to hold my hand over a flame, that's a dangerous situation. So our body's reaction needs to be fast because it needs to protect us against getting burnt, getting hurt. So we're going to talk about this reaction. We're going to talk about these actions, and then we're going to answer some exam questions about how you might be asked about reflex actions in an exam scenario. So the reflex action or the reflex pathway is as follows. So there will be a stimulus, something dangerous. So using that flame example, that flame is our stimulus. And that stimulus will attack something known as the receptors. So these receptors are present everywhere, all over our bodies, and their primary job is to detect any danger. So the stimulus exists, and our receptors in our fingers have detected that there is some kind of danger here. So what the receptors will do is they'll send a message to our sensory neurons. Now, our sensory neurons, they have a job, and that is to send any information that they receive to the relay neurons. And the relay neurons are in our spinal cord, and they basically act like a train station or a train schedule. And our relay neurons tell us where the response is needed. So the relay neuron will then say, okay, well, I am in a situation now where my hand being held over this flame is dangerous. So I need to tell this person that I'm controlling to move. So they're going to send a response to the motor neuron. And the motor neuron, in the name, it suggests movement. So the relay neuron then tells the motor neuron, you need to move. So that's exactly what happens. So the motor neuron then stimulates this reaction. So using the muscles that we have in our body, it tells the muscles to move, and that is when we get that reaction that we're looking for. We're looking for that automatic fast reaction. And this all happens within a matter of seconds. And that's really important because that's what protects us from harming ourselves. And it means that we don't need to get the brain involved at all. This is something that's primarily done through the spinal cord only because we need fast reactions. It takes a little bit longer for decisions to come through our brains. So when we're thinking about reflex actions, we're not just thinking about things to protect us against danger, but we're also thinking about things like blinking our eyes. These are natural responses that we don't actually think about. So we don't think about blinking our eyes. We don't think about breathing in and out. And these are all automatic, fast responses that are happening all the time throughout our bodies. So how will you get asked about this in an exam scenario? So I've got some exam questions here. So let's look at this one first of all. So many human actions are reflexes. Which statement describes a reflex action? And I know that we've already spoken about this, but let's talk about the two that it's not. So a reflex action does not need a sense organ. So that's incorrect. It does need a sense organ, and those sense organs are the touch, the smell, the taste, anything that needs the sensory input for the receptor to be triggered. So we know that's incorrect. Then you have a reflex action is a slow action, and that's also incorrect. As we discussed, the reflex action is actually a fast automatic response, and it's really important that it is a fast response because it's to protect our bodies against danger. So the correct answer here has to be a reflex action is automatic. So the next part of the question shows us a nerve pathway for a reflex reaction. So we just spoke about the reflex action and the pathway that it takes, and this is basically showing us the exact same thing. It's just showing us with images of where those responses are coming from. So we have point A here, And then we have the arrow leading all the way up to point C, where we can see this this image here. We'll talk about what that is in a second. And then it goes down to B, and then stimulating that muscle or that response that we're looking for. So here you're being asked to draw one line from each part of the nerve pathway to the name of that part. So we're thinking about A. What do we think A is? So our options are a motor neuron. So is this responding to, is this movement? Is anything moving in part A? Not yet. Could it be a receptor? Is it detecting something? Is that where our reflex action is starting? And the answer is yes. So A is receptor. Then we have B. So B, we can see that the arrow is leading to the muscle. And what part of the reflex pathway system leads to that muscle or that muscular movement? As we know, it's the motor neuron. So B is the motor neuron. And then we have C. And C is the busiest looking part of this picture. So it means that this is where the relay neurons are. So C would not necessarily be the relay neurons because we're not pointing at the neuron, but we're pointing at where the relay neuron is located, and that would be the spinal cord. So the busiest part of this reflex action is the spinal cord, and so C is the spinal cord. And now in the final part of the question, we're thinking about what reflex actions actually are. And like we said, reflex actions are automatic responses that are fast to protect us against danger, to keep us alive. So which two of these human actions are reflexes? So blinking when an insect flies into the eye, what do we think? Is that a reflex action? I would say yes. So a reflex action is when we have to do something as quickly as possible to prevent any harm coming to us. So if an insect flies into our eye, that could be potentially dangerous. So I would say yes, when an insect flies into the eye, that could be a reflex action. Catching a ball in a playground game. This doesn't necessarily need to be a reflex action because you do think about this one. You do think where the ball is going to end up, and you're making the active decision to catch the ball. So I would say that this is not a reflex action. Playing a musical instrument. Now, we could argue that this for some people does come very easily, but in a much more general perspective, it's not a reflex reaction. Removing the hand from a hot object, and that's the example that I spoke about. So yes, that would be the reflex action. That hot object is posing a real danger of hurting ourselves, so we're going to say yes, that is the reflex action. And then we have writing a message to a friend. Again, you do need to use your brain, you do need to use neural power to do that. So that is a potential way that reflex actions can be brought up in an exam scenario. And now we're going to move on to the next part of this, where we're going to take this reflex action and put it into the form of an experiment. So we'll go into that later. Thank you.